Salut French 101 students, ça va? Bienvenue au vidéo 2 du chapitre 1. So as you can see, we're going to be talking about les gens à l'université. So in case this is a new word for you, gens means people. So we're talking about people at the university or people at college. So since you're college students, they have designed this topic just for you. So these students in these pictures are going to be talking about different people. They're going to be pointing out different people. They're going to be describing what they're like, different characteristics that they have using adjectives. So we need to look at a few expressions that are going to be really important for us in this chapter. And you'll see I've got some highlighted in blue in this first section here. So we see ce sont. We also see c'est. Okay, c'est simply means it is, there is. If you see ce sont, it's the plural form of that. So c'est is like pointing out a person. C'est David, un jeune homme français. So it's David, a young French guy or a young French man. Technically means man. So it's David, a young French man. Okay, if there's something plural that we're talking about, more than one thing, then it's going to become ce sont. So in this sentence right here, mes amis, my friends, David, Jean, Léa, and Lisa. Okay, so we have four people there, mes amis. We'll be using ce sont. Okay, ce sont mes amis, c'est David. Okay, over here we see c'est Jean, le frère de David. So it's Jean or Jean in English. C'est Jean, le frère de David. So it's his brother. Okay, le frère is brother. Il n'est pas étudiant. We'll go backtrack over here. Il est étudiant. So when you're pointing out what he does, basically like his job or his profession, then you would use il est. Il est étudiant. So he is a student. Now notice over here, I'm gonna bold this so it stands out a little bit. If we want to say what he's not, we're going to surround the verb être, or est in this case, with ne and pas. When ne comes before anything beginning with a vowel, it becomes a contraction. You drop the e in ne and it gets attached to that verb. Il n'est pas étudiant. So he's not a student. So c'est David, il est étudiant, he is a student. C'est Jean, il n'est pas étudiant, he's not a student. Il travaille, he works or he is working. It can mean either one of those. Okay. So David et Jean sont français. So they are French. Sont goes along with David et Jean because there's two of them. Okay. Ils ne sont pas de Paris. They are not from Paris. So if we put ne and pas around that verb, it becomes the opposite, not. Okay, ils sont de Nice. They're from Nice, which is in the south of France. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to give you a chance to create your own sentence. You know, you can pause the video or let the pause in the video that I'm going to put there in just a second. You can let it sit for a minute and you can go ahead and write down these three sentences and make up your own creation. So I could put two different names in there. I could put a different nationality like Américain or Américaine. I can say where the people are from or not from. Here I'm going to say they're not from a place. Here I could say they are from a place. So I could say Marie et Jean sont américains. Et ils ne sont pas de New York, ils sont de Chicago. So they're not from New York, they're from Chicago. So you can kind of make up your own sentence with this. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to go ahead and write down your own sentence, and you can even record it if you want to. You can type it or you can record it. Okay, so looking at some similar sentences, now we move on to Léa. So c'est Léa, it's Léa. une jeune femme américaine. Elle est étudiante. Okay, now notice some changes here. When we're talking about a female, we're going to add an E to this adjective. The same thing with étudiant. Okay, so David est étudiant. Léa, elle, est étudiante. And notice that the consonant sound at the end of that adjective gets pronounced. So, américain for a male. We could say, c'est David, il est américain. But if I'm talking about Léa, now it is, c'est Léa, une jeune femme américaine. Et elle est étudiante. Et David, il est étudiant. Elle est étudiante. Et c'est Lisa, la sœur jumelle de Léa. Okay, these may be new vocabulary words for you. Sœur is sister. Jumelle is twin. So she is Léa's twin sister. Elle n'est pas étudiante. She's not a student either, just like Jean above. Elle travaille. She also works. Okay, so Lisa et Léa ne sont pas françaises. Elles sont américaines. Okay, so they're not French, they are American. And notice the form of the adjectives here. Okay, if we were talking about, let's say I were to substitute David. David et Léa ne sont pas français. I would take off that ES ending because when I have a group with a male and a female, I'm going to be using the male form. And it would be the male plural form because there are two people and one of them happens to be male. That's the way the grammar rule works in French. Okay, if I had David et Jean ne sont pas français, nothing changes. They're both male. There are two people. It's going to stay the same. If I just had Léa here, then I would have to say Léa n'est pas française because now I'm talking about one female. I need to add the E to the end and she's just one person. If I say Léa et Lisa, I need to change this now to ne sont pas françaises. And in the next video lesson, you'll learn a little bit more about the verb être, but for now, just kind of start to recognize the forms. Okay, so Léa et Lisa ne sont pas françaises, elles sont américaines. Léa est à Nice pour étudier. So Léa is in Nice to study, étudier. Lisa est en France pour voir sa sœur et pour visiter la France. So Lisa is in France to see her sister and to visit France. Okay, so this whole slide kind of gives you a lot of new expressions and vocabulary. One is to point out people. C'est David. Ce sont mes amis. Another is to point out what people do for a living. Il est étudiant. Il ne travaille pas. Il n'est pas étudiant. So we can use these different expressions to point out a person and to describe what they do as well. All right. Moving on to the next slide. Hey, les gens à l'université. On continue. We continue. So you can ask how a person is. What is their physical characteristics? Okay, comment est David? So how is David? What is he like? So we can use different adjectives. Gros, mince. So is he more heavyset or is he thin? We could say intelligent, bête. So intelligent is pretty clear, right? Intelligent. Bête would mean kind of foolish, maybe, not so smart. Timide, extraverti. So timide looks like timid in English. It means shy. Extraverti would be extroverted, so someone who's really social. Gentil or méchant. So gentil is nice, méchant is kind of not so nice. Not a very friendly or kind person. Okay, now the thing is that we can also use all of these in their feminine forms. Let me check to see. Yeah, that's coming up next. So we'll just talk about the masculine forms here. So I can describe David using, or David using, any of these adjectives. All of these adjectives are in their masculine forms. So you'll see on the next slide that we will use these same adjectives to describe a female. So I could say David est timide, gentil et bête. So I can say he's shy, he's nice, and he's not that smart. Not very nice to say that, I guess, but those are our possibilities here. Et David est extraverti, mince et méchant. So he's really outgoing, he's really thin, and he's not very nice. So you could choose any of these adjectives to describe him. So based on the example you see here, you choose 3 adjectives to describe David. You can choose any of them that you want. And again, with this one, you can type your response or you can say it. Either way is fine. Okay, so finally we'll move on to looking at the same adjectives, but now we're going to be describing Léa. Comment est Léa? So, comment est Léa? How is she? What is she like? Notice that we have all the same adjectives that we had on the previous slide talking about David. But now because we're describing a female, the form of the adjectives changes a little bit because it agrees with the person you're describing, their gender. So I can say elle est grosse instead of gros. Mince, this one doesn't change. It's the same for masculine or feminine, and some adjectives are like that. Elle est timide, extravertie. Timide stays the same, but extravertie adds an E to the end. Okay, and you might notice if we go back and look at the previous slide, extravertie does not have an E when we're talking about a male. Okay, intelligente. Now I'm going to pronounce that T at the end because I've added an E to it to describe Léa. You notice in the previous slide, intelligent is a nasal sound at the end. En, the T is not pronounced, and there's no E on the end, so we don't pronounce that T. Bête, that one stays the same. Gentille. Notice with this one, for describing David, the spelling is different. There's no extra LE on the end. But the pronunciation is the same whether we're talking about a male or a female. David est gentil, Léa est gentille. The only thing that changes is the spelling. Méchante, here we're pronouncing the T and adding an E to the end, but for David, it's méchant. It ends in a nasal vowel sound. All right, so I can choose any of these adjectives to describe Léa, right? Léa est petite, mince, et gentille. Okay, so I can choose any of those 3 adjectives and describe her in other ways. So Léa est timide, intelligente et gentille. Or Léa est extravertie, intelligente et un peu méchante. I said she's a little bit mean at the end there. Okay, so you can choose any of those 3 adjectives to describe Léa. So you can model your sentence after this one, and you can either type or say your response. Okay, and finally we have a couple of other adjectives that can describe people here at the end. David et Léa sont célibataires. So remember, we're using sont, which is the plural form of the verb être. It goes with David et Léa, the 2 people in the subject. David et Léa sont célibataires. So célibataire, you might recognize that as kind of looking like the word celibate in English, and in French it simply means single, that they're not married or they're not dating somebody. So that's one of those words that's kind of like a cognate. It looks like a word we recognize in English, but in this case it's a false cognate. The words don't exactly have the same meaning. Okay, et vous? Êtes-vous célibataire comme David et Léa? So are you single like David and Léa? ou alors is kind of like or then or so. Êtes-vous fiancé, marié ou divorcé? Okay, so you can answer that question for yourself. So it's asking you, are you single like David and Leah? Or are you engaged, married, or divorced? And you can easily answer this question by saying je suis. So dans mon cas, in my case, je peux dire, I can say, je suis marié. And I would use the form with the E on the end because I'm describing myself. So I need to add the extra E. I could say, je ne suis pas divorcé. I'm not divorced. Je ne suis pas célibataire. I'm not single. I can even say, je ne suis pas fiancé because, well, I'm not engaged. I'm already married. So the only one that's true for me is, je suis marié. So you can answer the same question right here. Êtes-vous célibataire? Ou alors, êtes-vous fiancé, marié, ou divorcé? So I'll give you a moment to jump in and answer that question about yourself, typed or spoken. Okay, so we'll finish it there for video 2. So that gives you some more vocabulary to be able to describe other people, to say what they're like, what they do, and to be able to answer a question about yourself too. So I'll see you all for video 3.